Picture this. You're watching security footage from an elevator. A young woman steps inside, presses multiple buttons, then hides in the corner. She peeks out, as if checking if someone's following her. Then she steps out, waves her hands in strange motions, talking to nothing. She steps back in. The elevator never closes. She leaves. The doors finally shut. For days later, guests at the Cecil Hotel complained their water tasted weird. It was coming out black. Someone decided to check the water tanks on the roof. That's where they found her. This is the story of Elisa Lam. The year was 2013, downtown Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel had a dark reputation. Serial killers had stayed there. People had jumped from its windows, and something about the place just felt wrong. But Elisa Lam wasn't focused on any of that. She was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, traveling solo through California, documenting her journey on her blog. Bright, creative, adventurous. She checked into the Cecil on January 26th. Her parents expected daily calls. When the call stopped on January 31st, they knew immediately something was wrong. This wasn't like her. Not at all. Police were called. A missing persons report was filed. And investigators started reviewing the hotel security footage, hoping for any clue about where she'd gone. What they found became one of the most watched and analyzed videos in internet history. The timestamp reads February 1st, 2013. Just after midnight, the elevator doors open. Elisa steps inside, wearing a red hoodie. She presses multiple floor buttons, not just one, but several. Then she moves to the corner of the elevator, out of view of the camera. Hiding, she peeks her head out, looking left, looking right. The elevator doors stay open, not moving. She steps fully out into the hallway, glancing around nervously. Then, this is where it gets strange. She starts making these hand gestures, waving, pressing her fingers together, moving her hands in deliberate patterns. She looks like she's talking to someone, but there's nobody there. The hallway is empty. She steps back into the elevator, pressing more buttons. Still, the doors won't close. She waits, then leaves again, this time for good. The doors finally close. The elevator starts moving. The entire video is 4 minutes long. But those 4 minutes have sparked endless debate. Was she scared of someone? Was she having a mental health crisis? Was she playing a game? The footage is unsettling because it raises more questions than it answers. But here's what made it even more haunting. The police released this footage on February 14th, Valentine's Day, asking the public for help. The video went viral. Millions watched it, analyzed it frame by frame. Everyone had a theory. 5 days later, on February 19th, the mystery took a horrifying turn. Hotel guests started complaining. The water pressure was low. The water tasted strange. Some said it was coming out black, brown. One guest said they'd been brushing their teeth with it for days before noticing. Maintenance staff climbed to the roof to check the water tanks. The Cecil Hotel had 4 large water tanks, each about 8 feet tall and 4 feet in diameter. They're not easy to access. You have to climb a ladder, and the tank openings are heavy. When they opened one of the tanks and looked inside, they found her, Elisa Lam, floating face up in the water, naked. Her clothes and belongings were found next to her in the tank. The hotel immediately shut down the water. The Los Angeles Fire Department was called. It took hours to drain the tank enough to retrieve her body. Guests who'd been drinking, showering, and cooking with that water were horrified. But the real question everyone was asking, how did she get up there? The roof access was supposed to be locked. There was an alarm on the door. Cameras covered most areas, but not the roof itself. The water tank she was found in, you'd have to climb a ladder to reach it, then lift a heavy lid that takes significant effort to move. Elisa was petite, just over 5 feet tall. Could she have done this alone? Possibly, but why? The autopsy revealed no signs of trauma. No evidence of assault, no drugs or alcohol in her system, only her prescribed medications for bipolar disorder. The official cause of death, accidental drowning. But that conclusion satisfied almost no one. Her family revealed she'd been dealing with bipolar disorder and depression. She'd been on medication, but there were questions about whether she was taking it consistently while traveling. Some medical experts suggested she might have been experiencing a manic episode or psychosis, which could explain the erratic behavior in the elevator. Still, that didn't explain how she accessed the roof, climbed into the tank, and ended up there. The pieces didn't quite fit, and the internet wasn't buying it. The theories came fast and wild. Some said it was murder. The elevator footage showed her scared, looking around, hiding. Maybe someone was stalking her, someone who stayed just out of frame. Maybe they chased her to the roof. The police supposedly cleared everyone, but people weren't convinced. Others pointed to the paranormal. The Cecil Hotel's dark history became a focal point. Serial killers Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger had stayed there. Multiple had occurred. Some claimed the hotel was cursed, that Elisa was experiencing something supernatural in that elevator. Then there were the bizarre coincidences. A tuberculosis outbreak was happening in LA's Skid Row at the time, right near the hotel. The test for tuberculosis? It's called Elisa Lam. Same name, backwards. And there's a horror movie called Dark Water, about a girl who drowns in a water tank on a hotel roof. The poster shows an elevator. The similarities are eerie. The most likely explanation? A tragic mental health crisis. Bipolar disorder, especially during a manic or psychotic episode, can cause confusion, paranoia, impaired judgment. She might have thought someone was chasing her. She might have climbed to the roof seeking escape or safety. In that state, getting into the water tank might have made sense to her, even if it makes no sense to us. But here's the thing about this case. The most logical explanation still requires you to accept a series of unlikely events. The unlocked door, the alarm that didn't sound, the tank lid, the lack of footage, her clothes removed. Every answer leads to another question. Elisa's body was cremated and her remains returned to her family in Vancouver. Her parents were devastated. They'd warned her about traveling alone, especially to areas like Skid Row, but she was determined to see the world on her own terms. The Cecil Hotel tried to move on. They rebranded as Stay on Main to escape the stigma, but it didn't work. The hotel struggled financially and eventually closed in 2017. There are plans to turn it into affordable housing, but as of now, it sits mostly empty. Netflix released a documentary series in 2021 called Crime Scene, The Cecil Hotel. It brought the case back into the spotlight, but also received criticism for sensationalizing Elisa's death and focusing too much on internet sleuths rather than mental health. The online community that formed around this case is still active. People still analyze that elevator footage, still debate what really happened. Some have even visited the location, turning Elisa's tragedy into a dark tourism attraction. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because here's what we need to talk about. Elisa Lam was a real person. She had family who loved her, friends who miss her, dreams that never got fulfilled. She struggled with mental illness, something millions of people deal with every single day. And while the circumstances of her death are unusual, they're not impossible. They're just sad. The elevator video is disturbing, but it's likely showing us a young woman in crisis, not a ghost story or a murder mystery. We turned her worst moment into entertainment. Millions of views, endless theories, documentaries. Her Tumblr blog is still online. You can read her thoughts, her poetry, her excitement about traveling. She was funny, introspective, hopeful. She was more than that 4-minute video. Maybe the real mystery isn't what happened on that roof. Maybe it's why we're so desperate for it to be something more than a tragedy. Why we need conspiracies and hauntings instead of accepting that sometimes mental illness and unfortunate circumstances combine in devastating ways. Elisa Lam deserved better than to become internet folklore. But her story matters. Not because it's unsolved. It probably is solved, even if we don't like the answer. It matters because it reminds us that mental health is serious. That traveling alone can be risky. That the people we meet online, the stories that go viral, they're real lives with real consequences. The Cecil Hotel is closed now. The water tanks are empty. But Elisa's story continues to echo through the internet. A cautionary tale wrapped in mystery, a tragedy that became a phenomenon. And maybe that's the most haunting part of all. Rest in peace, Elisa Lam.